How are you today and where in the world you're dialing from? Tanya?
Hi, I'm Tanya. I'm doing great and I'm dialing in from Dubai.
Wonderful. And Tammy?
Hi everyone, I'm Tammy and I'm dialing from Brazil. And
Well,
everything's great being with you.
I know it's pretty early in Brazil, so thank you so much for dialing in today to talk about such an interesting topic because I feel like everyone is talking about AI and data, but people are still feel frustrated when it comes to actually, starting and actually trying to implement it in your business. So I'm looking forward to discuss this. But before diving deeper into the topic, I'd like to learn more about you and your expertise. Who
hmm
would like to start?
You
Tammy, the
can
floor is
jump.
yours. Go for
Oh,
it.
okay. Thank you. Hi everyone again. Tammy here. I work at KPMG, basically focus on digital transformation and innovation and all the sexy names that everybody puts out there. But at the end of the day, is a strategy and how can we build a better company, a better world, a better future for everyone. I really like and dive deep into innovation and disruptive technologies. That's pretty much how I ended up talking about AI. But for me, is one of many topics. I do work focus on how can we blend technology into business and understand the client and needs. Uh, I had the opportunity to watch Tannya in some other lectures, and it's. I think we will combine this because it's never about technology. So
Yes.
that's pretty much what I do. It's helping clients understand that although it's sexy to say I'm applying AI or I'm using data, it's okay. What are the things you're driving your business into? What is the outcomes you're expecting? And especially, how
hmm
can you make a profit from it? Or if you're an NGO, it's how can you deliver value from it? So that's pretty much my day. And I'm definitely an enthusiast on this technology, still learning. And I think we will be learning a lot for the next few years. But a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for such enthusiastic presentation, Tanya.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks for having me. It's such a pleasure to be on this live LinkedIn. I actually have a background in the technology industry. I used to work for VMware, which is a leading cloud conglomerate for many years. And I was leading capabilities around our emerging technology portfolio, which is cybersecurity, our main machine learning AI product portfolio. But honestly, 4 or 5 years ago, I'd also developed a keen passion for AI. So I kind of became this educator and go to person in the region that I am, which is the Middle East, for all things AI. And that's because I'm extremely passionate about how it will transform the future of work, what kind of jobs and industries will exist in the future, and how it might make us rethink the sort of intelligence that we bring to the table, right, in the future. So now I am the founder, as of about a year ago, the founder and leader of AIDEN, which is an advisory and educational firm. We're running skills academies in the region on AI for younger generations, but we've also been working with SMEs and corporates, taking them from A to Z basically. We go in, help them understand what AI is, help them identify the opportunity or the problems when it comes to AI, and then as and when they need it, we build for them as well. So that's what Eden does, and it's been a really great roller coaster so far. I'm excited to have this particular conversation and hear Tammy's perspective on things. It's going to be great.
Thank you so much. It sounds wonderful. And I do feel like, your expertise, they're so different, but they're going to complement each other now that we are going to discuss the topic. And this session is going to be pretty interesting because we will not just, discuss the problem, but we will use the example of an imaginary company and help them actually, become better and expand globally. So let's imagine a manufacturing company that is called Inna Solutions, and they are pretty successful when it comes to their domestic market because they have a really good solution and a strong product, but they're looking to expand globally and they do not really know how. So we're going to use AI and data to help them expand globally. So my first question to you is about data. And Tanya, maybe you can start with help answering this. Let's imagine that they want to utilize data, but let's help them think of some key data, sources that inner solutions can utilize to gain some valuable insights into, target markets that they want to expand to, and some consumer behavior that they can learn when it comes to expanding globally.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's such a great question. And honestly, the biggest pain point for a lot of people is, where do you find your data? What do you feed it into? And so I always like to start with a very simple 2 by 2 matrix that I often present in the sessions and that I deliver, which is, if you are, if I could have shared screen, I would have. But if you are an organization that is looking to use AI for anything, whether it's for this or for anything else, most likely you're not most likely 99.9% you're not going to be building the AI, right? The people who are building the AI, the actual models, are the Googles, the Microsoft, the big companies, right? And that's because they have the resources to do so. But you do have other options. You can either, if you have some robust data access, then you can focus on um, buying a solution, right? If you have a lot of data access, and you can focus on customizing a solution. If you have limited data access, then you can partner with a company and ask them to figure it out for you. And if you have both data and you have the intellectual property, meaning you have the know-how of how to build an AI solution, then you can actually build it. But that's like in the top right corner of that matrix. More likely than not, most people are going to go down the customized route. So in the case of solutions, I think that's the name that we thought of.
Yes.
For them, it seems like the way that you presented it, they're looking for some sort of use case that helps them understand an external market, right? And for that, really the best thing to do is to go get publicly available data, right? Government data, trade association data. This is the kind of stuff that's easily accessible to them. Meanwhile, depending on the scale of an organization like them, most likely they're already using some sort of consumer behavior analytics platforms internally, right? And if they're using them, then they can essentially use those same analytics platforms to assess other markets and see how people are behaving and whether it makes sense to expand into those markets. And the irony of everything that I say is, sometimes you just need to hire an expert to get started, right? And that's really it's like the best solutions are really where you get the whatever quantitative data is easily available that can be put into a solution, and then add the human insight. But I would always say the first thing to do is to find data that's in the best and most accessible structure possible. And really that's text data, right? So you kind of want to be able to scrape the web and whatever's available as easily as possible, as opposed to trying to go for more qualitative data sources, which is going to be difficult because as an organization, you then have to transfer that data into text-based data, aka into vectors that can work within your AI model. That's what I'd do if I were, don't overcomplicate it.
Yes, absolutely agree. And Tammy, I do feel like at KPMG you do utilize data a lot. So what insights can you tell to Inner Solutions?
Oh, I totally agree with Tanya. It's sometimes I think people and companies overcomplicate, and I would totally follow is look for the clean sources, look for the data you have in house, and especially if you can to add on the structure. If you have the demographics, if you have maybe the psychographics, if you're already looking on that and transforming intangible data that is so relevant today, but it's complex to work with. But if you already have this maturity, as try to use tools as lookalike or correspondence or correlance, where you can compare where you're looking at and the markets that you're trying to get into your market. Because sometimes you can have all this data, but you could use it to also compare to where you want to reach. So you can also use the statistics to try to find the best way to place yourself. And that's basically what we do at KPMG when looking at it. It's not only sourcing the data and comparing, but also using the mathematics to try to see where can I have the best fit. Because again, Tanya brought this up. It's really hard for a human to, one, process all this data, and two, get a grasp of all the details that the data can support or can assess. So if you're using the machine and even the AI models to try to understand, okay, what is the best fit, or better, if I project this, where is the best place that I can put myself into time. Because sometimes you have historical data that will show you, okay, they are not there yet, but they might be. So that's not a near term place that I should go, but can be somewhere that I go in the further, or I will develop this market. So I would add on this, don't forget to bring your historical data and your information that you already know, because this is real, and then compare with the projections, compare with the statistics, and then you can find best fits for that. However, don't ever forget to add the human perception on it. Sometimes the data shows, okay, before making a big investment in the solutions, okay, I found out the data shows that the market is X. Do assess it personally, maybe send someone there, see how the market works, because sometimes the data will show what historically has been placed. And when you understand why, maybe there's a regulation that shows that, okay, nobody can do this here. And that's why you have this blue ocean into your strategy. So just pay attention that sometimes there are things that we can't see through the data because they were not, the variables were not set for that. And then we might make bad decisions.
Absolutely. And it's, it's been something that I've been thinking about because, when we utilize data, we should never forget that, of course, it's numbers, it will help us make decisions. But behind those numbers are people and their behavior, what they like, what they want to do, what they're looking for. So we should never forget that, when it's people behind data, we should always have humans, we should always have experts who will know, who will never forget this important, aspect to actually make important decisions. That's a great point. Thank you. So that was about data, but the second part of our topic is about AI, and I'm really interested, how can AI powered analytics help businesses like solutions assess maybe feasibility and potential success or failure of entering a new market. Or let's imagine that solution wants to present a new product on in a new market. How can they start this initiative and test that it will be successful or it's likely to fail? Tanya, maybe you can start.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think something to kind of keep in mind on when it comes to using AI for something like that, specifically for predictive analytics, which I think is a better use case, is to think about all of the tasks within that. Like, let's say you are solutions and you are going to enter this new market. How would you traditionally do it, right? And from all of the things that you traditionally do as an organization, as a human heavy organization, right? Not a technology intensive company. How would you do it traditionally? And then from that, what is the most painful parts of it? Meaning, what makes your life, what takes a lot of time? Most likely, it's processing immense amounts of data and feeding into this system. And what is essentially the pain point, right? And I would say even beyond predictive analytics, we can kind of take it a step down, which is people tend to be quite resistant towards just adopting a solution and using it to make any sort of analyses, because we still inherently trust our own judgment over that of machines, as we should, right? However, what it can help with is really an aid in the whole thinking process. And I think we can actually use basic generative AI, which people are already using for scenario planning and scenario creation, right? Because today, Gen AI solutions as they exist, whether it's OpenAI's API or even Google's Gemini that has a much larger parameter set, they can rapidly process vast sets of internal business data, of global news sources, of political developments based on communications, depending on the files that you feed it, based off industry reports and all of this, and start to help you plan and think about what a potential scenario could be for entering into a market, including the risks, the benefits, and so on. And so I think we can start with something that simple to see if it actually aids in the thinking process. And if it does, then that's great, because then you can use predictive analytics for product fit analyses. You can use predictive analytics for market demand forecasting. You can use it for things like segmenting your customers, but ideally you only want to use it for tasks that you can do, but that would take you a really, really long time in that process of deciding what market to enter, and then try to reduce the time that it would take to do those tasks by then adopting an AI solution, right? So it's not about outsourcing the entire decision making to the machine. It's rather identifying what aspects of the decision making process should be outsourced, and then taking that and still leaving the overall judgment to the expert who would traditionally do it.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. And tell me what some other maybe, use cases of AI predictive analytics you can think of, or maybe some other use cases of AI, that can potentially help with business expansion.
Yeah, I would take it. I totally agree with Tanya. I wouldn't add anything. I think that's the most. I would just highlight again what she said about being careful on what you're choosing and why you're choosing it. Because again, back to when I started the intro, it can sound sexy, but it is really complex to drive value from it. It's much easier than it was. It's super accessible now, but there are complexities out there that you should work on. Uh, Having said that, I think I would add another direction on where you can use AI into it is back to the reflection on Tanya of what would be the challenges for you to place yourself in a new market, so a market expansion. Uh, Normally, we've been talking for the last, I don't know, 10, 20 years, we've been saying about this transformative power of platforms and co-sharing and everything that you don't need assets for. Uh, and then we got the Airbnbs and the Ubers that is scaled based on assets that they didn't own. If you think we take like the same idea on AI and put it, what are the other things that I would technically need someone to do that for me, that I can experiment without rising the cost from the beginning? And it's so cool to test right now, but there are a lot of AI experts saying out there, hey, you're with AI well applied, you can already build your 100,000, 100 million, a billion, a unicorn, only AI based. There are still technologies that need a bit more stability. There are technologies that are super ready for you to go. So, marketing wise, they are out there and you can use freely. So, I would add that predictive analytics would help you also to try to do experiments in new countries instead of thinking, okay, I need to hire a team to test some countries. That would be our old way to do a project. Would say, okay, I have 5 targets. Let's test them out. Let's hire a team. Let's see the regulations. Let's test if we convert. Let's position ourselves into how it can be placed. Now you can actually do it pretty much with the AI. You can use AI agents. You can use AI generative marketing. You can use for distributing your experiments and your budget so they replace automatically based on what's converting more. And now you will be able to make a decision much more based on real time data or real evidence than the supposition of what you did based on the market data or the statistics that you started with. So I would
Yeah.
just add on this other layer that you can also go from the theory of the strategy of why am I deploying to the country to, okay, I'm going to use AI to test if that converts into reality.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely agree. So these are I feel like you already started elaborating on some potential risks that you might face when you just utilize data and AI. But I'd like to conclude, as the wrap up for our session. What are some potential risks, that companies might face when they rely heavily only on data and AI? Because sometimes when discovering new technology, you dive into it with your head and you forget about everything else because you feel like it's a one pill solution for all of your business problems. But what are some
Yeah.
potential risks, to always keep in mind?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest issues with any of these models is The reality is, and a lot of people ask me, how exactly is it making decisions? How exactly does the algorithm structured? So within the realm of artificial intelligence, you've got AI, right? And then a subset of artificial intelligence is machine learning, which is essentially it's literally like, labeling photos of cats and dogs, and the machine learns then how to identify a cat or a dog. And then there's a more advanced layer to it, and I'm really simplifying this, but hopefully people can follow along. And then there's a subset of machine learning, which is deep learning. And deep learning mechanisms is what happens when, for example, there's a great documentary on YouTube about the game Go. So a bunch of AI programmers built Go, AlphaGo, which is from DeepMind, and AlphaGo was designed to create to play the game Go and beat the world's best human Go player. And ultimately, AlphaGo did beat the world's best human Go player. And the way that it did this is by devising a completely new strategy in the game that was never before seen in the history of the game, which is a 7,000-year-old game, allegedly, right? So everyone was quite shocked. And I think that's the black box part of AI that a lot of people consider to be the biggest risk. And it's the same, that risk can be applied to any sort of decision making, which is when that deep learning mechanism is applied, or when we build models that are meant to make decisions based on decision trees and deep learning architectures, then what happens is that there's a point where we don't know exactly why the decision, how or why the decision is being made by the machine. And this black box it's literally called a black box, and there are some solutions to mitigate them. And I think in any capacity, we should be adopting these solutions. Usually they're called explainable AI platforms. And one example is a platform called QuantPy that I can recommend. They're a startup in Germany that are really great, and I know that they recently partnered with a huge content creator, media creator, to essentially manage and assess the risk within the platform of the algorithm. So for any algorithm that's being used to make a decision, QuantPy's platform goes and assesses its risk, its level of bias, its transparency, factualness, truthfulness. And while these solutions are still a work in progress, we need to adopt state-of-the-art XAI solutions, especially in industries where decision making absolutely should not and cannot be taken for granted, right? We need to be super careful about it. So I would say biggest issue is the XAI problem, biggest issue is the black box problem, and the solution is XAI.
Thank you. And Tammy, do you have anything to add to potential risks?
Yeah, I think the architecture black box thing it's a big issue, and especially because we still can't grasp it fully. So there is the part of this development that raises so many other questions. The arena of who's developing AI, I would add that comes from the same place of this understanding of the architecture, but is it doesn't. And I totally agree with Tannya with the layers of AI, ML, deep learning, neural networks, and well, so on and so forth. Is everything is based on data. So we have a starting point that is data based, and we need a high volume of data. So, on the same hand that we are concerned on the risk of the architecture, we're also concerned on the sourcing that we are bringing. Because as we need a lot of data, then rise questions that I'm sure everyone heard about, but is all the privacy issues that we have to deal with, all the ethical issues that we have to deal with. Because depending on the data, it will be biased. And who is to determine what is the variable? What is transparency? Is this transparency for me, or is this transparency for you? And do we share the same meaning? So if we follow the discussion that are happening in Europe, for example, that is trying to regulate this, they need to enforce a definition of what is this or that, but then does not necessarily relate to what the world understands from this. And especially when and I totally agree with Tanya that this is almost a job, like the big models, they will be done by X amount of companies, which means that the X amount of companies are going to be the ones to define what are the variables that we are trying to discuss here. And this is a risk. It's something that we will have to learn how to deal with. We can't change the historical data. That's what makes it historical. It is what it is. So we will need to learn how to adjust this on, well, where are we setting the future decisions based on this historical data, because history changes, especially when you have a side that wins and a side that loses. Normally history just replicates the one that wins. So what are all the unspoken voices that is not on the data but we're still using to make decisions? So I would just highlight those. I totally agree with Tannya. Interesting times to come.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, ladies. As I expected, your answers, they really complemented each other, and it was a great discussion, as somebody from the audience said. But as Tannya mentioned, it was a pretty high-level overview of the problem, and sometimes you had to simplify, what you were talking about. So I'd like to encourage our audience to connect with these lovely ladies, if you'd like to solve any of your problems or help you expand your business, or maybe, just get started with AI and data. Absolutely. Feel free to connect with Tannya and Thammy to help you get started. Thank you so much, ladies. Again, it was a great discussion, and it was a pleasure to have you on my hot seat session.
Thank you. It's great
Thank you.
great being here. Thanks for having us.
Thank
Bye.
you, Tannya. Thank you.